All right, welcome everyone to today's presentation on the new features in our AerScreen for Windows software version 3.04. There are two changes in the software that we will be talking about today. One is a change in the way that the emission rates are entered for the sources, and then also a change in the way that the input files are imported into the software. All right, so in previous versions of the software, there was a limitation that was that the smallest emission rate you could enter into the software was 0.0001 grams per second. This is a limitation we have removed in version 3.04. What you can do now in version 3.04 is that if you want to enter a smaller if you want to enter a smaller emission rate, you can do that if you enter it using scientific notation. Or exponential notation. And in the next slide, we have a screenshot that shows how that's done. The source parameters, you can put in a number like 3.0 e minus 05, which is smaller than the previous limitation. And you can do that not only for point sources like in this screenshot, but also for all of the sources. Now I'm going to go ahead and go over to our software and show what happens when you do that. All right, so I go to my source parameters, enter the emission rate 3.0 e minus 05, click OK, and then I can run the model. And that's going to be the emission rate that will be in the model. And then when your emission rate is that small, then the output from the model will also have fairly small concentrations. And what I want to show when this run is done is that the concentrations are now also going to be in exponential notation in the output file. All right, now that the model run is done, you'll see the concentrations are pretty small. It's 0.004 micrograms. If you go to the output file and go to the end of the output file, since these numbers are pretty small, they're now shown with exponential notation. And then if you go ahead and display the output as a graph, AerScreen for Windows will also show small numbers appropriately. For example, showing here is 0.0026 micrograms. It will spell it for you, and if the numbers become less than, I think it's 0.001, AerScreen for Windows will start displaying them in exponential notation as well. So most of the time will display normal numbers, but if the concentrations are small enough because your emission rate is small enough, then the concentration will be displayed in exponential notation on the output graph. All right, so that is that enhancement. The other change that was made in version 3.04 regards how the input files are imported into the software. So when we run our model, it has to create two files: the input file, which has an extension INP, and a terrain list file. And what those look like are the INP files, text file that has all of your AerScreen inputs. And then the terrain file is also text file. It just has every terrain file that you selected during the model setup in it. In this case, there's just one file. It's this DEM file. All right. So if you want to set up a new model, you don't necessarily need to start from scratch. You can take that input file and import it into AerScreen for Windows using the File Import menu. And what we've changed in this new version is that if your terrain file is missing, the input file can still be imported, and there won't be any problems with that or any errors. And on the next two screenshots, I have screenshots of what happens when you do have that file present and when it's not present. So if it is present, AerScreen Windows will recognize it as being present. It'll show a list of the terrain files you've selected previously in the previous model run. If it's not present, it'll just say that the file cannot be found, and the area where the file list will be grayed out. And I'll go ahead and show what happens when that happens. I will show what happens when in that second scenario. Right, so you have an input file called demo2 that does not have a corresponding terrain file. Now I'll go ahead and say file import and select the file demo2. And yes, the software does tell you that it can't find a terrain file. Now I tell it what to call the new model setup file. And let's go ahead and call it demo2. Now when I click OK, the software warns us that it couldn't find the terrain file. So this is the option of not having a terrain. And when I click OK, all of my model settings that were previously in the model are now back in AerScreen for Windows, including that emission rate. So now what I can do is just go to the terrain options, so that say that I do want to include terrain, and then just go ahead and select any terrain files that I want back into the model. And then now that I've selected those files, they'll be in the new model run. And those are all the changes in version 3.04. And now I'll go ahead and take questions from the audience. Thank you.